My background is I was born in Orange County, California.
That's right.
My dad was in the Navy and he was stationed out there. He grew up here and then went to the Naval Academy. I lived in Japan, Coronado,
That's right.
Virginia Beach, and all the military bases in those areas. And couldn't even honestly count how many times I moved off the top of my head. When I was 15, he retired as a commander, and then he returned to Easton and brought the family with him where he grew up. So, and that was about 20 years ago now. After I graduated from Easton High School, I went to Salisbury. After Salisbury, I found my way to California and then to Argentina, where I taught English. And I also taught English in Colombia as well. And then made my way back to Easton about 10 years ago or so now as an adult with a clearer career pathway as opposed to just teaching English, which I learned is not my passion.
Yeah.
So here I am. So
Yeah.
I currently work for a BDK Inc. It's an IT firm here in town. We're a cloud service provider and a managed service provider. And for everyone who's not aware of what a cloud service provider does, we host data on our own servers. So we offer private cloud. So if you had proprietary information that you didn't want Amazon or Google scrubbing, then you would contact us. So my daughter was born on New Year's Day, and my wife and I will be married 3 years in October. Maria is just quite the blessing. She is already crawling around the house and standing in the crib. I think she takes after me because I play drums and she's taken one of her bowling pins and just bangs it on the crib. So as a drummer, I'm sort of proud of her. And as a father, my sleep suffers, but it's okay.
Tell me what went through your mind as you decided that you were going to get in the arena, so to speak.
After my experiences with helping Ukrainian and refugees because of the war, I received overwhelming support from the community when I came back, and a lot of people were publicly asking me to get involved because they believed in my ability to do good. And the first time someone brought it up, I laughed because I thought they were joking. And but enough people said it where it started to resonate, and I actually started to think about it. Well, why are these people saying it? That got solidified when my daughter was born. I realized that what we do now has residual effects that last 10, 20, 30 years. And I want to make sure that when she's an adult, that Easton is continuing to be a great place to live, to work, to raise a family, and retire. And that's exactly what I hope to be part of, is the decision-making process to make long-term decisions for the town.
And you did run for town council. After the election, very quickly, you decided to run for council president. And I'd like to understand a little bit about that. Usually,
No better time than the present. And I felt that there was just an extreme amount of momentum there, and I didn't want to lose that.
Yeah.
So I decided to capitalize on that and to ride that wave.
What is it about that job that you felt like you could do? And beyond that official definition, where do you want to take that position?
I'd like to say that I do have experience with being on boards and committees and running meetings in my professional experience. So going through an agenda and making sure people are following Robert's rules are, something that I'm very accustomed to. So I look forward to hitting the ground running in that regard. I know there is going to be somewhat of a learning curve. I'm extremely motivated, dedicated. I do my homework, and I think that people will be pleased to see what I can do for Easton.
What are the issues that you care about? And when I say that, meaning that it really did motivate you to run again?
Well, I would say top priority is public safety. I want to work with our first responders to make sure that they have everything they need to protect us and keep Easton the safe place that we all know. Attainable housing is another priority for me. there is a demand here, a strong demand for housing that is moderately priced, roughly between 250 to 350. And I know that that's hard with current interest rates and, things that are out of our control. But, like I said, there are long-term plans that can be made and put into effect regarding that. Another would be for better healthcare. And I say better healthcare because that's the headline in the hospital's pamphlet about the new hospital. So it's not a dig. I also think mainly is, yes, we do need a new hospital. I firmly believe that. And I think that having it consolidated on one campus with all the auxiliary sites, I think is very smart and wise. But I am also a believer of the fact that we need more primary care physicians here, as well as more specialists. There are many people I've spoken with personally who have moved here from across the bridge or from another state, and they still go back to where they used to live to access their health care because they can't get in here. It's very, very common. So I believe that it is something that we should strive towards.
There are a lot of different opinions of what affordable housing means, whether it is realistic in a community that is faced with such growth and such low inventory in terms of rental properties. It's pretty daunting to piece together a realistic plan. What are your thoughts?
I believe that first we have to define it, because if we don't know where we are, we don't know where we're going. And in order to achieve a goal, you have to set a framework. And that would be the first step. To me, there is a difference between attainable and affordable housing. That is a very gray and confusing area to a lot of people. So attainable housing is defined as something that's within reach of a household that nets 80 to 110% of the AMI, which is the area median income. And in Easton, that's 98,000 and change. So a mortgage that would be able to be budgeted for someone or a household that is roughly earning between 85,000 and 110,000 annually. So an attainable home would be somewhere between 250 and 350. Affordable housing is, as I understand it, between like 80% down to like 30%, and then below that, then you get into like low income family. I do believe that if we provide opportunities for individuals to move up, then other places will become available for other people to do the same. But it's a tricky balance, because how do you address your housing shortage while maintaining your small town appeal? That's extremely important to me, and I wish I had answered that as part of my last question. But I am a proponent of minimal growth, but I do also understand the fact that there are many people who are in need of a starter home or an apartment or things of that nature. There are many opportunities to renovate and to infill, which I believe are the route before looking at growing outwards.
Since the election, almost immediately pivoted to the public attention on Poplar Hill Farms development. And it looks like the developer has gone back to the drawing board and come up with a plan that goes from 400 houses to about 125. What did we learn? What did you learn from that experience?
That's extremely important. And that is extremely important to me as well, maintaining our critical areas and our waterways, which that's our culture. We have many people who spend their weekends and free time kayaking, fishing, things of that nature. So we need to protect those areas. Aside from the fact that from an ecological standpoint, that's what makes Easton so charming, is the fact that we have nature and waterways here, and we should not jeopardize those things. And to me, those are of utmost concern. And I've learned that there are many other people who feel the same way. It gets tricky when you get into property rights. When you look at the 5th and the 14th Amendments, there's only so much you can do from a government perspective. So hopefully we will be able to steer or work together with the developer rather to make sure that the proper or the smart way to do it happens.
Did you feel like the city could have done more to either worked with the developer to get a more reasonable plan, or how do you critique that chapter?
I can't speak to what exactly the city did with the developer because I'm just not behind the curtain like that. But what I can take at face value is it went through planning and zoning, and most things that go into planning and zoning come out refined, and they almost never look how they did when they went in. So I would trust the process that we have and allow the people that we trust and appointed into those positions to do their job, and let it come to the council once it's refined and almost polished product. So so moving forward, I would make sure that communication is key. I believe that in all things in life. I played sports growing up, and I work in a business environment. If you don't communicate, why even do it? Because it's a team effort, and it takes everyone to be on the same page or rowing in the same direction to accomplish their goals. So,
How do you look at the council now, and how do you think you could change things if you want?
I would say more, instead of just analyzing or scrutinizing from that standpoint, I think it stems back to the communication aspect. And in my opinion, if we can do more to garner more community engagement and have people providing feedback at these meetings, because that's extremely valuable. You need all of the information, all of the opinions of every party at play, and that's how you make an objective decision. And that's what I believe I bring to the table more so than any other candidate. I'm a firm believer that I have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, and that listening to people is the best skill you can have, instead of having the my way or the highway approach, which is counterproductive and divisive. So I would look to be a unifying force with strong differing opinions and bridging that gap between the council and the community.
One thing that you were not involved in, but it's come up with the 2 other candidates that did sit on the council, and it's what I would call a micro issue, but I was surprised by the attention it got on the Spy, is the charging stations. The city is now having to figure out what to do with. How do you critique that issue, and what is that?
It's my understanding that this was done as a test to see if this is something that the town would be looking to do by putting more charging stations at key spots around town. I do believe it's time that they have a point of sale system. I think that that test has run its course, and there's probably enough empirical evidence to make a decision off of. So and that's very noble to do, to have the mindset where we can minimize our carbon footprint. I think that's important to do for any facet in life. And I think that is a shining example for other towns, that we took an initiative to say, hey, we're going to do an experiment. We're going to eat some cost. Easton Utilities did, so thank you to them for that. But now it's time for us to move forward, make a decision on what direction we want to head with that. And my belief that we should make sure there's a point of sale system in place there.
Something that's far more serious and more interesting for me is the challenge as the town does grow, that we have this east-west challenge where Route 50 has kind of segregated a certain part of the population. What are your thoughts about how we can bring this community together?
I've, in the past few weeks, been focusing my efforts campaigning and canvassing on that side of town, mainly so far. And what I've heard is that the residents there feel forgotten. That is, I've probably heard that at least 10 times in the past week. They'd like to see more restaurants over there, more things in walking distance, and to be able to safely cross 50 by foot or on bike to get into downtown. They do feel like that a majority of things do center on this side of town. I mean, it is downtown. I mean, that's just every city. But at the same time, you can't forget the people who don't live in downtown. So that is an extremely important thing to me, is to be the voice for the unheard.
And are there things that you want to do right off the bat?
I'd like to first see what the dynamic is and to learn more about specific issues, and then be able to hit the ground running, because it is only a year and a half roughly of a term, and I do need to hit the ground running to be able to prove myself. But at the same time, I need to make sure that I am not making rushed decisions and things of that nature. I would look to get in, receive mentorship from the other council members and the mayor, and other community leaders as well, to really get a pulse of what needs to be addressed immediately. What's the most pressing concern? Because at the end of the day, it's not about what I want to see. It's about what everyone in town wants to see. And I think the best way to do that is to engage with the citizenry and to gain knowledge from more experienced individuals, that I can be able to obtain all that information, analyze it, and make an objective decision. I like to have all sides and all views before I make a decision like that. And I understand the weight of the decision and being the tie-breaking vote. So that is something I'm not taking lightly, and that I do look forward to showing people what I'm capable of.
I mean, I always want to leave some time for you to, anything that we haven't covered that you want to make sure that people know about you or your candidacy.
As I mentioned before, I believe that listening to people and genuinely hearing them is so critical to this role. And to learn what everyone believes and thinks and the facts they present, to be able to make a well-rounded decision. That is my philosophy on life. One thing I will like to highlight about myself, I'm running as an independent, and I'm unaffiliated with a political party. And I've received that question many times while knocking on doors. I mean, I've knocked on thousands of doors in the past few months, and I can probably say I've received at least 100 to 200 of that specific question. And this is what I say. I'm unaffiliated with a party because I read George Washington's farewell address, where he warns that political parties will make a circus of our government with a fire that couldn't be quenched. And I thought that he was right, and he's an extremely smart man, so I thought if there was ever good advice to follow, it'd be his. And in this position, I intend to solely be pro-Easton, because that's what's important here.
Yeah. It should be known, this is a nonpartisan race, so.
Right.
But, you know, people do find themselves affiliated from time to time.
Yes, and I'd like to not be part of that and get into any of that, because that's just, that's the last thing we need as a town. We need to be all heading in the right direction and on the same page, and not let national issues obscure the needs of this town.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.